Friends, welcome back to the Rob Meda Show. Unfortunately, we've got some more distressing news about our armed forces to talk about today. You know, the United States Air Force Academy fired an outstanding track and field coach and Gold Star widow not long ago. And my fellow airmen and citizens, our Air Force is dangerously corrupt from the top down. Religious exemptions for the COVID vaccine have been denied at the direction of no less than the Secretary of the Air Force himself. The highest level commanders refuse to acknowledge the facts about the vaccine or to allow any religious exemptions, even though their chaplains are confirming almost all of them as sincere and deeply held and real. The superintendent of the Air Force Academy is Lieutenant General Rich Clark, and he has refused to listen to these exemptions and has denied the facts we now know about the vaccine's adverse reactions, all in the name of force readiness, even when we now know that force readiness is at risk from these adverse reaction possibilities, and the efficacy of the vaccines is nearly zero in preventing infection or transmission. Clark even attempted to keep 4 seniors from graduating this year, threatening them with disciplinary action and that they would have to repay the government for their education just because their religious beliefs precluded them from accepting this vaccine into their bodies. These actions are unconscionable and a failure of his leadership. In the Air Force I served in, he would resign after approving all these religious exemptions to protect those he is responsible for. Sadly, that Air Force no longer exists, and the one standing now is politicized and corrupt, so Clark chooses to take even more despicable actions against people he is charged to protect. After Dana Lyon's husband was killed in action in 2013, the U.S. Air Force Academy offered her a track and field coaching position with, quote, promises to take care of her, unquote. Instead, the Academy terminated Ms. Lyon effective June 30th, 2 months shy of 5 years of civil service. Dana, welcome to the Rob Meda Show.
Thank you for having me, sir. I appreciate the time.
Yeah, I go through stories like this every week. The ones that hurt my heart the most are about the service that I spent 33 years in. You know, General Clark is a peer of mine. We had the same commissioning year. We flew in the B-1 together. I know him. He's a good man. And I just, it breaks my heart to have to say things like this about people that I know are good people, but they're in a situation now where they're not acting the way we were all trained to, you know. So thank you so much for coming on the show to tell your story. Confirm for me, please, Dana, you were an Academy graduate and an officer in the Air Force, correct?
Yes, sir. I was a 2006 graduate and acquisitions officer by career field.
Okay, and your husband was also an Academy graduate?
Yes, sir. He was a 2008 grad. We met on the track team and got married the year after he graduated, and he was a logistics officer.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry for your loss, knowing that he was killed and in action and everything. But, you know, the Air Force Academy in the service that I know reached out to you, as I said in my monologue, and said, hey, we're going to take care of you. Don't worry about anything. You're not only a veteran and a combat veteran, you're a Gold Star widow. So you don't have anything to worry about. And this is on top of your outstanding record. I mean, you were a 2-time NCAA champion in the javelin throw, right?
Yes, sir, I was. Yep. Yeah, so after Dave was killed, it was even actually at the reception following the graveside memorial or interment that we had at my church. There was an official from the Academy athletic department that said, why don't you come back and coach and be a part of, you know, the Air Force family. And so originally at that time I was still active duty, and so they just put me in the PE department and then quickly asked me to take on some more roles and responsibilities. I became a strength conditioning coach really quickly for the track and field and cross country team, as well as the women's soccer team. I did that for a few years before the Air Force told me that I had 3 years since Dave was killed, and it was time for me to get back to work and get back to my real acquisitions job. And so at that point, that's when Coach Lindeman, the head track and field coach at the time, asked me to get out of active duty and come join the track and field staff. And to say that I've had numerous people say love to take care of me. I'm invaluable to the institution. I'm constantly talking to cadets to basics during their basic training about the service before self. I've spoken numerous times during recognition, sharing my story at the Fallen Grad Memorial Wall, and like you said, promises to take care of me. And so I know the impacts are far and wide, and they will be with me. Those personal relationships that I've had in mentoring and training and developing cadets and leaders of character. I know that those relationships will go on far beyond this termination. But at this point, it's difficult to swallow what's going on, to be honest.
Yeah, it is. I think I left something out. You are in the Academy Sports Hall of Fame, aren't you?
Yes, sir. Hmm.
I mean, it's just incredibly, like I said, distressing that we have to talk about these things, Dana. The the talk to folks about your sincerely held religious belief surrounding this vaccine, because your particular case is about that. It's about your First Amendment right, among some other things that we'll get to. But really, it's centers on that. So explain to folks what that belief is and how you went about explaining it and applying for it.
Right, yes, sir. So I'm a follower of Jesus Christ. I don't claim a denomination, non-denominational evangelical Christian. I just love the Lord, and I am strongly pro-life. I remember as a young kid, my church and my family, we would line the streets and do pro-life marches, and just wave at people and tell them that we're made in the image of God, and that He loves us, and that He gave His life for us, and that we all he wants our heart. He wants our salvation, and our trust and our faith to belong in Him and Him alone. And so, because I believe that we're made in the image of God, I want to stand for my First Amendment rights, which is pro-life, right? It's my religious rights. I want to support and defend not just the Constitution, but what we stand for within that Constitution, and that is the right to life. And we can get to liberty and right and whatnot. But that's what I took the oath for. That's what Dave gave his life for in that oath. And so when I had to fill out a religious exemption, I wasn't thrilled about having to fill out a religious exemption. I felt, to be honest, it's an unlawful order. But I did a number of things that the academy required to do, like obviously wear a mask and get tested because I didn't have the shots. But basically was told if I do not have my religious exemption in by November, I think it was 8th or 9th, that I think they would start to look at my terms of employment. And so reluctantly, I did submit a religious accommodation request with that faith-based background, understanding from what I have heard and known and done research on about the vaccine having been, at least in the testing phases of the vaccine, and just the research of it, using child sacrifice. I don't like to call them abortions or just a fetus. That's a child made in the image of God. He knew us before we were born in the mother's womb. And so for me to knowingly benefit from the use of that vaccine, having been, and I use vaccine lightly, to be honest, right? It's a shot.
Yeah.
I'm not anti-vaccine. I'm anti-mandate. I'm certainly anti this vaccine because of the nature of how it was developed in the testing phases, as far as I understand. And again, it goes back to my stance on pro-life. Unfortunately, I've discovered a lot of things that utilize this child sacrifice, and it's incredibly disturbing to know how much that industry is being used pervasively across anything from food to medicine. And so I've had to tread lightly and be more cautious and read letters or read labels and do a little bit more research than I ever had. I mean, I got all the vaccines when I was an active duty officer, but this one would seem to be quite controversial and caused me to do a lot of my own research.
Yeah, look, the vaccine's under an emergency use authorization, Dana. So you not only have a duty to do your own due diligence, the people mandating this have a duty to make sure you can have informed consent, just like I did. And look, I took the first 2 rounds of the Moderna vaccine before we knew any of the things that we know. And same as you. Well, I took all my vaccines when I was a kid. I was a military brat, so I've got yellow vaccine cards going back to the time I was born, and then 3 decades in the on active duty. Yeah, sure. I took the vaccines. I even took the anthrax one when I didn't want to because we had to do that to deploy. But it was for a specific biological warfare antigen that we were had the 10% possibility of dying from, and in that war zone. So it made sense to take that one, even though I saw a lot of people, and including myself, had some really nasty reactions to that. And I know people that are disabled because of it now. And that vaccine was later deemed to be a illegal order, and it was dropped eventually. And it devastated on the air side of our military capability. It devastated our air aviation members' manpower in the reserves and the Air National Guard, according to the only GAO study that was done about it, because it drove people out, it drove them to go to different jobs, and those kind of things in some pretty big numbers. So there's a lot surrounding this. I'm glad you explained the religious accommodation request, and I think I would have hesitated to submit one too, even though your beliefs and my beliefs are 100% aligned. Because why do I have to do that? I mean, I've sworn to defend the Constitution and uphold it and protect it, and the Declaration of Independence. That's the underpinning values of that of the country, and the laws of the country and the Constitution all list the right to life as the number one right.
Right.
I should never have to justify my unwillingness to use murdered babies
Right.
to save myself from something. Uh,
Right.
but are you uh, are you taking any legal action at all that you can talk about?
I mean, not at this time. They did extend my contract by 2 months so that I would be eligible for 20 years worth of uh, retirement, civilian retirement. I'll hit that 5 years in the middle of August. And so I'm going to finish the month of August. 31 August is my termination date. And at this point, I want to finish well. I want to continue to lead and develop these cadets, even if it's just in the classroom as a PE teacher. I would say classroom. Hopefully, it's at the golf course, teaching them how to play golf and
Yeah.
softball and different things like that. But at this time, I'm trying to stay focused. Like I said, finish well. Finish with a great attitude. But it's difficult. It's the betrayal. Sorry.
It's okay. Uh,
The betrayal of the institution, simply for standing for our constitutional rights, to be honest, is taking a toll.
and I'm not surprised. You and your family are in my prayers for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, folks, you may not understand this emotion, but the things that Dana and I are talking about the academy, about the U.S. Air Force, people dedicate their whole beings to these institutions, and when the institution is weaponized against loyal, uh, thoughtful, principled members of our society that have volunteered to serve you and serve the institution for extended periods of time, it's shocking to us and to our souls, really, to have to say things against it, to have it be turned against you. Because believe me, I've been a commander 3 times in the United States Air Force, and the power that one person has in that position called command is unbelievable. Civilians will never understand it unless they've lived under it or wielded it, and and it's an emotional impact when that power is turned against you, when you are innocent and you have honor and you're ethical, and it appears that the dishonor and the unethical actions are being taken by the institution. And I think I think the future's gonna bear that out, Dana. Quite frankly, you mentioned that.
Real
Go,
quick.
go
Uh,
ahead.
I would say the betrayal, feelings of betrayal started in the end of August, and the
Yeah.
betrayal of our country and our withdrawal in Afghanistan. And to sit here and think about my husband's life, uh, be given for what? For us to just pull out completely. To be honest, that really, I think, started to bring to light a lot of things that were coming to the surface. And so the betrayal I've felt for almost a year now.
Now, when you talk to your fellow officers, colleagues, Dave's friends and colleagues that are serving or have served, do you guys talk about that?
About the betrayal piece?
Yeah, from the Afghanistan perspective. I mean, that's my war too, and I
Yeah,
know how I feel about it, and I talk to my friends and colleagues about it.
yes, sir. Yeah, that's it was also really interesting and unique to talk to my athletes, and they saw my response too, and obviously it was very emotional. And basically say, hey, what we're doing here is so much more than just track and field. What we're doing here is teaching you about the challenges in life and when they get thrown at you, and what losses feel like and how to respond back to them. And that you're not just here going to school, and you're not just here doing track, and you're not just here to have a job when you graduate, that there's a significant amount of weight and responsibility that goes along with that. And I've lost a number of recruits even when they go and Google Dana Lyon and see the life that they could potentially be faced with themselves, whether it's personally or knowing someone, serving with someone that is near to them that encountered loss and
Hmm.
has dealt with that grief. I tried to use it to a positive when the Lord called me back to the academy and the doors were open there. Was to talk about Dave's heart to serve and his willingness to answer his country's call and to lay down his life ultimately. And while every day is a struggle, I try to find positive ways to share Dave's life and his legacy, the way that he led as a servant leader with a humble heart and a lot of gratitude, and constantly passing that on to the cadets that I get to coach, the cadets that I've spoken to. I think there was a time around 2016 when I literally talked to every single cadet that was at the United States Air Force Academy at one time or another, whether it was the commitment dinner speech or the dinner talk there, or
Hmm.
we had fireside chats with the classes and throughout recognition. And so I honestly, I guess, walk as with a humble honor, to be able to share Dave's story, and for that to just seem to come to like a crashing end in August was the start of the many blows that I felt in the last year.
Yeah, it's as part of your story, you mentioned that once you decided, it was open that you decided not to take this vaccine, you got some harassment. Can you describe any of that?
Yeah, there's a couple that come to mind. For one is the mask wear. I had to continue to wear my mask even when others that were vaccinated wore the mask, and I was wearing it. I got called by the HR director from the athletic department. He said, "Hey, did you see the email?" And I said, "About the mask wear?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "Well, I just kind of breezed over it. I knew it didn't apply to me because I'm not vaccinated." So he said, "Oh, I just want to make sure you're still wearing your mask." Well, yes, sir. I'm still wearing my scarlet letter. Like, I've got my mask on. And then when the mask mandate dropped for all USAFA personnel, regardless of vaccination status, and including USAFA visitors, an indoor policy mask mandate was gone. So the mask mandate was gone. The only place that you had to wear a mask was in medical facilities. I went into this gentleman's office. I had to test, do a COVID weekly test. And this was right after Coach Linneman had passed away. And I'm in his office. I tested negative, and as I got ready to leave the office, he said, "By the way, you still need to be wearing your mask." And I said, "I beg your pardon, sir?" I said, "Didn't you see the email that came out? Like, the email said that all USAFA personnel and visitors are no longer required to wear masks indoor." He goes, "Well, you still should be wearing your mask." And I said, "Sir, I'm not required to wear the mask. I'm not going to wear the mask if I don't have to." And he told me a third time, he said, "Well, you ought to wear the mask. It's the right thing to do." And I said, sir, I just tested negative in your office. Will that be all? And I went back to work. And then I had another gentleman who, he means well. I've known him since I was a cadet. But while I was with my athletes, he walked by and he looked at me and he shook his head and he goes, you got to be expletive kidding me, right? I can't believe you're not going to get this shot. Don't you care about these kids? And I said, sir, that's exactly why I'm not going to get this shot, is because I do care about these kids. If it means that I have to lose my job to stand up for something that they can't stand for because they don't have the ability and people to fight for them, then I will go down on that hill. And he just looked at me like, don't you care about your job even? And I said, this is not what this is about. And so those are the two, or the, kind of the three that stand out the most to me. But I felt a lot of vilification and ostracizing. When I got COVID back in November, there was this email that went out to a lot of the upper leadership and said, this is very concerning. Dana's not vaccinated. And, she's just around the athletes. And now that how about ask me how I'm feeling? How about ask me if I need anything, knowing that I'm a widow and I live by myself? And honestly, I felt fine. Went on a lot of hikes out by myself with my dog, coughed a little bit and just went on with my life. But it's just amazing to me, the demonization. Yet when the vaccinated get sick, right? Oh, but they're vaccinated and boosted, they should be fine. The four people that I was around for Thanksgiving when I got sick were all vaccinated. So tell me where I got it from.
Yeah, and we just heard that the President of the United States, President Biden, who has to be the most vaccinated and boosted individual in all of human history, he should be anyway, or he better be if he's got 1 ounce of ethics to his name, has now got COVID, and we'll see how he's treated.
Right.
I mentioned in my monologue, I said the Air Force that I was in doesn't exist anymore. I think you were in it for a while too. I retired in late 2011, and as I said, General Clark's a peer of mine, so I know he was in it too. And the Air Force that I was in and that you were in would never have acted the way you just described, where people didn't check on you and take care of you, because that's what we do. We take care of our families. We take care of each other when things are bad, and it's just heartbreaking to hear that has gone away and been replaced with these crazy people that say things like, "Well, don't you care about the kids?" Well, that's exactly why I'm doing this interview, is because I care about the cadets out there. Dana, you mentioned that you tell them all the time that what they're doing is not really learning athletics, and those kind of things are just going to university. I mean, you're learning leadership. You're learning leadership because when you face situations like what happened in Afghanistan last year, or the numerous other combat scenarios, especially as a commander, your human failings that you have learned about, you're learning about them, will prevent you from making mistakes that could cost you or somebody else their lives, and or the success or failure of a mission. And that's what they're learning, and it just blows my mind that these general officers are not taking care of their people. Because that's the number one job of a commander. We learn it from the time we are second lieutenants, and we go through all this training. Your number one job is to make sure your people are taken care of so they can get the mission done, because that's who does it. All right. It's not me going out and doing it for them. Even you as a coach, you're not going out and performing. You're trying to teach those cadets what the right thing to do is and how to make good decisions and those kind of things, right?
Right. Yes, sir. Well, 2 points, if I might, to your comments there. Is I think if we were to had a strong showing by our general officers in all of the military ranks to stand up and say, let's check this. Is this really something that we should be, getting for ourselves and forcing upon, our troops? I think that we would be in a completely different scenario in our country, in our military, in our world. And I was talking to to Dr. Ron Scott last week on another talk, and the military used to be kind of the sacred institution, right? That used to exist a little bit separate from the political current of the day, and nowadays I think it's clear that our general officers, we know that they're appointed, they're stars by Congress, and they're very much influenced by politics and current administrations. And I understand that we're supposed to not just support, defend the Constitution, follow the lawful orders of our leadership, but it's where you call into question if this is a lawful order or not. So that's one thing. And then to the point about taking care of your people, I find it really interesting that the response when I asked for my 2-month extension to allow me to be able to have 5 years of civil service and then therefore be eligible for retirement. They said, "Oh, we're so sorry. We didn't know that this was the case, that this was a termination 2 months prior before you get." They have all that information. So it could have just simply been an oversight. And that's fine if it was. But again, going back to taking care of your people and ensuring that, you're not trying to host somebody even when you want to have them leave your organization. So I'm thankful that they responded in a way that gave me those 2 months, and I'll be able to capture the 20 years. But I certainly did not retire. I cannot retire. I'm a civil servant. I'm not active duty military, so that I won't realize this retirement until I think 60 years old or so.
Yeah.
I think the principle of the matter to be able to be eligible for that retirement. I do know there's some people going around the academy that said I've retired. Did not retire. I was terminated, for clarification.
Yeah, it's a a big difference between I imagine you're in your 30s and to say that you're retired, well, you aren't even eligible to get the pay, folks, until you're
Right.
60. But at least they did that. And to your point, Dana, about it being an oversight, uh, there are at least 2 levels of approval on that package before somebody makes the final decision and signs it and says, "Okay, we're gonna terminate this person." And those are all well-educated, well-experienced levels when they put their signatures on that package. So I don't believe for a second that it was an oversight, but I'm glad they changed their minds when you brought it up to them.
Right.
At least they got to save a little bit of face. So thank you,
Right.
General Clark, if you or your staff was involved for that.
Yeah.
But that doesn't make it any better. That doesn't
No.
make it any better because we're now as an institution, we're going to deprive cadets of your leadership. We're going to deprive them of your athletic expertise and professionalism that they could learn and go on to be champions, not just in college, but maybe in the Olympics. I mean, you're that level of a performer. And I do want you to talk a little bit about, speaking of performance, uh, what is this whole? Give us the timeline on the religious exemption request. Did you have a few little items of information in the story along the road there after the harassment piece that talks about why are they doing this or can they do this and what your boss said, who has passed away unfortunately. But tell folks that little bit of the story is to give them an insight of a little bit more of what happened to you.
Yes, sir. So on, I believe it was 13 January, I was called into my sports supervisor's office, as well as Coach Lindemann, my boss, and the HR director or human capital director of the athletic department, and was essentially told that my contract was up for renewal and that it was a year-to-year contract, which was actually a 3-year contract. But they said it was up for renewal on 30 June of 2022. And they said, typically your contract gets renewed so long as you meet terms of federal employment and your boss or your coach, your head coach, says that you're doing a great job. So it's based on the federal terms of employment and performance. And so they said at this time, based on the federal mandate and the fact that you haven't received your COVID, vaccinations, you are not eligible for a renewal of your contract because you don't meet those terms of employment based on the federal mandate not having the shot. And they said if you don't get the shot by 30 June, you'll be terminated. And I asked, I said, what about my religious exemption? There was a little bit of intimidation and kind of, basically they said, yeah, you sent in a religious exemption, but the likelihood of that being approved is very slim. That they're getting denied in other services. And apparently it just, to my knowledge, it's never been ruled upon. It just is now in some database in DC, which doesn't make me feel all that great. But again, which is why I was reluctant to put the exemption in. So that was essentially that conversation on 13 January. You don't get the shot and you'll be terminated on 30 June. I think it was then on 27 January, there was the injunction of the Fifth Circuit Court that basically said that federal employees can't be terminated or not considered for employment based on their vaccine status, which I forwarded to Coach Lindemann, explained to him in the FAQs where it broke that down. And so he was armed when he got called into a meeting the following week with those same two individuals, just not me there. And they essentially said, no, we can't terminate Dana based on her vaccine status. What's her job performance like? I've talked to some folks in the military. That's illegal. You can't be looking for other reasons if you don't want, with the whole vaccine thing. If you're trying to get rid of them for one, you can't look for other reasons. Regardless whether the legality of that, it's just wrong. Coach Lindemann responded. They said, "What's your job performance like?" He said, "Outstanding, exceeds expectations, goes above and beyond. She's invaluable to the institution," or something to that effect. Obviously, he told me about it. So secondhand knowledge obviously wasn't in the meeting, but that's what he shared with me. And at that time, he also asked in that meeting, since Dana can't travel officially with the track and field team because DOD policy won't allow unvaccinated people to travel, he said, "Does anything prohibit Dana from taking her own leave and paying her own way to continue to coach these kids?" Because my thought process was, my athletes still deserve a coach, regardless of the current situation that I'm standing up against. And so I proceeded to pay my way to and take leave and pay my way to every track meet. With the exception of one who had a volunteer assistant coach who's been on the staff for the last 2 years. And so she's an academy grad. She was a world-class athlete, discus thrower, and just a good friend of mine. So she took him to that one meet. But I think I had 4 flights, countless hotels, rental cars. And so I had to pay my own way to get into the track meets. I couldn't get coaching credentials. And partly because of who I am, Dana Pounds, the javelin thrower, and now Dana Lyon, the coach, and the relationships I had. There were some meets where, anybody could go on the field and they didn't really ask questions because they knew that I was, their coach. And so I was told I couldn't coach. So I think that probably obviously didn't make that academy super thrilled that I was still coaching my kids. But they said, we can't tell Dana what she can and can't do on her own leave. But they tried to tell me I couldn't coach. So I was coaching from the stands most of the time. If I could get down track level, that's something that I look forward to being able to just honestly be positive technical encouragement. If I'm trying to teach them something at a meet, then I've failed them as a coach. We went on to have an incredibly successful year. As a strength conditioning coach for the entire track and field team, I was personally responsible for the strength and conditioning of all the team. And so our men's team won cross country, indoor, and outdoor championships at the Mountain West Conference level. I had a young man who set a school record in the weight throw. I think he was number 2 in the hammer throw. He won Mountain West Conference in the weight throw with a massive, I think it was like a 6-foot personal best. I had a young man break the freshman record. I recruited the number 6 and number 7 discus throwers in the country. Last year I had number 3 javelin thrower in the country. I think I had a female top 6 in the javelin, so that made me feel pretty good to get some javelin talent on the women's side, beefing up those stats. So that's kind of how all that went down. And so on 31 May, I was called in once the track season was over. I also had 3 individuals qualify for first rounds at NCAAs. Last year I only had 2. But on 31 May, when the season was concluded, I was called into my supervisor's office with the HR director and the interim head coach. It was a very short meeting. They said that this meeting is to notify you that your contract will not be renewed. This is a no-cause termination. They said that It's a desire for the department to go in a different direction. Um, and then they handed me a termination letter, and the termination letter specifically said, this is non-disciplinary and not personal, but your contract will not be renewed. The term date ending of 30 June is the end of your term contract, which is when I then wrote the letter requesting an additional 2 months. And then when they gave me my 2 months to push it back to 31 August so I could capture the 5 years, they also came back now a week later and changed the story, or at least gave a different reason as to why I was terminated. And they said that, to be clear, this termination is based on your job performance, not based on your vaccination status. I guess they heard rumblings that I've been in touch with STARS and had a lot of guidance and leadership there and sharing that, no, this is something that you need to ask for and stand up for. And so I went on Fox News, and I don't think it made them particularly happy about that, but I still stand that the basis for my termination at least started with me not being willing to get the shots. But obviously, because of the stance that I've taken there, I'm seen as, at least my understanding is intolerant and toxic. And really, I'm just non-compliant. But if we had another hour or so, I can, share about what's this map is above my head here. It's got actual markings, and I just kind of keep track of all the kids that I've commissioned. There's 25 kids. There's been 3 grads, friends of mine that I've named their kids after my husband, and just the numerous text messages, notes, cards, emails that I've gotten throughout the last 5 to 8 years that I've been at the academy, of people thanking me for getting them through the academy. Or excuse me, there's a young man who said, "Coach, you saved my life." I left practice one day when he wasn't there, called his AMT AOC, found out that he was down at the mental health clinic, and I sat with him for the rest of the evening. And I get notes from his parents occasionally, just thanking me for what I've done in this young man's life. But then also just for being mom and being real, and sitting and having conversations and loving and mentoring these kids. So I know the impacts that I've had is for the cadets and for the athletes. I know that it's not seen that way by my leadership, unfortunately. But to say that I've served well and faithfully and committed that, or I've been committed to our vision and our mission at the Academy of training and developing leaders of character for me through athletics, I think I can hold my head really high, knowing that I've had that impact that I was called to give.
Oh, you absolutely can and should hold your head high. And just out of curiosity, whose signature is on the letter that says it's now based on poor performance?
It's the executive athletic director.
Okay, because did they do a performance appraisal documenting some poor performance that's discussed
So
in this letter?
I actually just printed those out this morning. The performance appraisal is actually dated. I know it's in June. I want to say it was dated the 21st or 22nd of June, and it still is rated fully successful on all 4 parts of the areas that I get rated on. Previous to that administration, so my last 4 appraisals were all outstanding, singing my praises. So something obviously has changed to me. The only thing significant that's changed is my stance on the vaccine, because I don't believe it's the performance. If anything, we had a much better year, at least this year, than the years previous, since I've been on the staff. But yeah, no, it said that Dana's responsible for the throwers. The throwers have been struggling lately. Her recruiting has suffered or something like that, and her off-base campus or off-campus recruiting is non-existent. Well, my off-campus recruiting is non-existent because I'm not allowed to travel and recruit off-base because of the DoD policy. But I somehow still managed to snag the number 6 and number 7 discus throwers in the country, both around 199 feet 11 inches.
Yeah, see, there's the documentation right there of your performance. And so the person who signed that lied, and the person who signed that performance appraisal is lying because they're lying by omission. And I'm so sorry that the institution that we have both served, and your husband died serving this country, and that institution has become so corrupt. I mean, it's unbelievable that leaders, whether civilian or commissioned, or senior enlisted would go along with this craziness because they went along with those lies. And we're talking about a service academy, ladies and gentlemen. All the services academies in the United States for training officers have this thing called an honor code. And I believe it says something to the effect, we will not lie, cheat, or steal or tolerate those among us who do. Doesn't it? Still says that, right?
It's interesting. One of my athletes, after 30 June, I was no longer a track coach, had a conversation with my athletes, and he asked how I was doing, and I'm not going to shy away from the facts. And so I told him that my original termination letter said non-disciplinary, no cause, or non-disciplinary, not personal. And then they came back and said it was based on performance. And he took personal offense to that because he set a school record this year. And also, like, what else could we have done on performance-wise? He goes, but Coach, don't you realize that the honor code only applies to the cadets, not to permanent party? And that right there just, it kind of hit me in the gut because as far as I'm concerned, I don't surrender, my commissioning oath, and I don't surrender, the academy oath. And I'm not perfect, but my gosh, when a cadet said that, it struck me. It struck me pretty hard. There's been a lot of blows, but that was one of them. And I'm like, we can't operate like that. We still need to continue to live with integrity regardless. And that's what the country depends on. That's why we can, wear our rings with pride, and sign our names with class of, USAFA 2006 or whatever the case may be, because our country knows the honor code that we soar to, and also that they expect us to live honorable lives as we carry out the rest of our duties.
Well, unfortunately, the respect for military officers is dropping drastically. I think it was in the mid to high 90s when I came in the Air Force in 1978, and it's down in the 60s now. So, but it's our own doing, and I will continue. I promise you this, Dana. I will continue to fight for reinstatement for all those military and civilians that this has happened to, and an expungement of any negative disciplinary action at all in their records once we get this government back. And I'm not going to turn this political, but as an American, we have to get our executive branch back under control, and we have to have folks in elected office that believe in the Constitution and executing the laws and doing the right thing. And we don't have that now. We really don't. And this is an example of it. I'm stunned at the things that I hear from folks like you. And this story is especially stunning and compelling. It gives me the more strength when I hear it. I get more strength and desire and determination to get out there and get done what I just said. Have everybody reinstated and have their records expunged of any negative comments if they want to do that. And if they don't, then some other form of compensation, but always take the negative out of their records and make sure they have the right type of discharge or separation.
That's a tough one for me. I worked really hard in the last 8 years to honor my husband and live in such a way to inspire these cadets. And so I know for a fact that I've influenced and loved them well and served them well and coached them well. And for me to be seen as an insubordinate, toxic individual, it hurts. So I know who I am. I know that I've loved these kids well. I'm sad to be turned into a different chapter, but at the same time, I'm looking forward to it for sure. Being a D1 coach is not for the faint of heart. I mean, long days. A lot of times it feels like it's 365. 24/7 when you're making recruiting phone calls. If you're not recruiting phone calls, you're writing and building programs. Just constantly being available for the athletes, emotionally, obviously present for practice and whatnot. So it's exhausting. I definitely felt like I was living an unsustainable life, and this is a welcome change. I just hate how it's gone about.
So after the end of August, what's the future hold for you professionally?
Professionally, a sabbatical. I've had a number of folks reach out and say, hey, this head coaching position's open, or this throws position's open, this strength coach position is open. At this point, I just need a break. I think after Dave was killed, I went back to the academy. I think it was my coping mechanism. And I just dove into work. I think I need a significant amount of time to grieve. The day I got terminated, my parents reached out and said, "All right, Dan, we have a question we need to ask you, and you better have a real good reason if you say no this time." And I said, "Oh no, what could this be?" And my dad said, "You want to go to Israel with your mom and I in September?" I said, "Absolutely." And so I'm really, really looking forward to just some time like that. I have a brother who's lieutenant colonel in the Air Force. He's got 6 kids. I kind of helped raise 5 for a couple of years when he was going through some stuff. And so I just miss that opportunity to be able to go see family. We're recruiting all in the fall, and then we're on the road every spring. And so, I kind of basically get the month of July to catch back up on life, see as many people as I can, and dive right back into classes in August and practice at the end of August. And so I'm looking forward to taking care of me for once. I want to get healthy spiritually, physically, mentally, emotionally. I think there's a lot of opportunities out on the horizon. I know thanks to stars and broadcasting my story, I've had a number of opportunities outside of track and field that people have reached out about. So my future is bright and encouraging. I'm just going to sit at the feet of the Lord and wait to see what He has next for me. I'm pretty broken after this last year for sure, not to mention the last 8.5 years. So I'm looking forward to some health and some healing, some sleep, and a lot of travel. I think I might even be a snowbird this
Hey,
year.
that's okay. Yeah, my wife and I we traveled. We ended up traveling from our first retirement home and built a new one on a beach because we wanted to be on the beach in South Mississippi. So that I'm looking at the surf every day, all day if I want to, because it's healing, as you said. You
I think the
know,
presence of God
uh,
comes in on those
yeah.
waves. It's
Oh
amazing.
yeah, yeah. It's amazing. We're truly blessed, and we're still blessed in this country. And I have hope. I will always have hope because this country is founded by people with hope that believe in God. And
Yeah.
I think that we will continue to win the right battles, and this is one we're going to win. Uh, Mark my words. We will win it, and those that have done the wrong thing should and will be held accountable at some point, whether it's by us or by God, uh, is to be seen, to be seen yet. Well, thank you, Dana. I appreciate you coming on and spending so much time with us. Our audience knows about your story, and they really have asked me to try to get the full accounting out there, and you have done such a wonderful job at doing that. We really appreciate it. Thank you for your service. Thank you for honoring your husband, Dave. And God bless you all, and good luck with your journeys over the next year. You will be in our prayers.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for having me on. Let me tell my story. Thank you for all that you and Stars are doing just to continue to fight the right battles and just to really bring our country back. I
Yeah,
appreciate Thanks for letting me be a part of it.
you bet. You'll always have a place here. You've got my phone number, so don't hesitate to call if there's anything I can ever do to help.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much. I appreciate your time.
God bless you.
God bless you.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was Dana Lyon, Air Force Academy graduate, well, soon to be former coach. We got some good news there. She did get to extend her time so that she could be eligible for retirement and get retirement pay at age 60. Uh, but Gold Star widow and just a solid American that has transformed into a leader, a multiple faceted leader in different parts of her life, and we'll continue to do that. And we will uh, fight for her and those like her to be reinstated if they so choose, get their records expunged, and make sure that they are clean and honorable because she served honorably, just like thousands of others that have served honorably that have been really hurt by this vaccine mandate enforcement that is going to turn out to be an illegal order. I'm sure of it, and those that are responsible will be held accountable either by us or by God. You can help those folks that are in lawsuits by going to www.stars.us. It's been on the screen while Dana was on the whole show, and hit the donate link for the legal fund. And there are a lot of officers, 600 pilots or so, and thousands of other officers that enlisted that are involved in these lawsuits. And they really need legal help because we're not rich people when we serve in this uniform. We don't do it to get wealthy. And even the highest rankings of us don't get wealthy very often. So they need the help. So go to stars.us and donate to the legal fund. Keep these folks in your prayers. Keep us in your prayers. And don't forget, the Rob Maness Show will be back next week, Tuesday at 3 p.m.